Lee Tilghman was one of the first key wellness influencers, ultimately earning over $300,000 a year. Her book, If You Don't Like This, I Might Die, an influencer memoir, tells the behind-the-scenes story of how the pressure to satisfy her social media followers took over her life and led to a fixation on healthy eating. She ultimately quit social media and spent time in a mental health facility. She's interviewed by cultural theorist and head of global foresight at Reddit, Matt Klein.
To me, what this book really is about, and firstly, I read this, it was the fastest book I've ever read in my entire life. I'm a notoriously slow reader. But what stood out to me immediately was this is a book about extremes, this transition between perhaps extreme vice to extreme wellness. And what I think is so fascinating is that here we are in this moment where you are about to start a book tour, influencing a book about the dangers of influencing. And to me, it's such a profound moment because what that represents perfectly in culture is we are so obsessed with binaries and extremes and in-groups and out-groups and quick reactions and oversimplifications. And over the course of the book, we land in a place of messy nuance and ambiguity. And can you use social media for good to talk about the harms of social media? Or can we promote and influence a book about the harms of influence? How are you feeling right now on the eve of beginning to influence, perhaps again, for the first time in maybe a long time?
That's a great question. I think I understand that, and that's probably the biggest criticism that comes out, and I think about it a lot. And when I was preparing to release this book, I was in such a place of like deep disdain with the app, and I had burnt out so much that I thought I would just release this book and never promote it, and maybe my publisher could do all the promotion for me, because I didn't want to go back on the app that, so I see my cousin here, so many people I love, that I just didn't want to go back on the app that like almost killed me, and was just like, I felt like I was like, for a while I was like, I'm never going to go on Instagram again. And then I got to a place where I wrote the book, I spent so much time on it, and I thought I'd be crazy to not, first of all, to use a platform that for free. Instagram is a free to use app, and the reason it's free is because we all get ads. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this platform to, like, a lot of my followers may not vibe with this, and I still continuously, I think I've stopped losing them, but like up until like a month ago, I was still losing them because people were like, we want the fat balls, like we want the quinoa bowls. And I've just like changed course. And I understand like talking about social media on social media is very meta, and a lot of people don't want to hear that because they're so happy. It like we all know that like it's kind of like a fantasy, and it's kind of like a distraction, and we already know what it does to our brains, blah blah blah. It's like a tired argument at this point. So I think a lot of people are like, don't remind me. It's like, you know, the cigarette like things like this is smoking kills. It's like, oh, I don't want to see that. I want to like just be in my little, you know, smoking. And so I think a lot of people are like, you know, this, and so I think a quick criticism to that is like, well, you're on Instagram, and the way that the kind of like reckoning and reasoning I have in my brain is that this is how we talk now. This is how we communicate. This is how we get our messages out. And there has been nobody's written a book about influencing. And I know it's very meta to like write a book and influence about a book that is a kind of about not, and how influencing hurt her, to be promoting it on social media or promoting it in general. I guess just like promoting anything is influencing, but I want my message out. I want to, and I guess kind of that's just who I am, but I want to share and I want to help people. And if I never speak about it and I like go under a rock, I'm not really helping anyone.
Let's go to the profession itself. I think what stood out to me a handful of times is you use the phrase, well, it's my job. Whether that be an excuse or whether that be justification or whether that be rationale or whatever it may be, but it's my job. And I was struck by that so many times, and empathizing perhaps with those who may critique that. I mean, to a certain extent, right? It very much is a job. And I think why people struggle with that is because everyone has Instagram in their pocket. Anyone could post a photo. Anyone does this perhaps for free. And perhaps it's so hard to understand that there's a lot of money here. How do you reconcile perhaps those who may not understand that this actually is a job and is very lucrative at that?
Yeah, like the general kind of like people who are just like, this is not a real job. I mean, it's funny, when I was not influencing and I went back to a 9 to 5 and I was working as like the social media coordinator for a perfume company, and I was watching, I had to like watch all these influencers like get ready with me's and like, you know, send them perfume. And I got to a place where I was like, oh, that girl's life looks so great. Like I had just left Instagram myself and had been through that. And I started to like get into the dream again. I was like, whoa, like she just gets to like wear perfume and like we're paying her and she like just redid her house. And I
was jealous.
Yeah, I was starting to get jealous. And then I was like, Lee, you have to remember like that's how I think like sultry and seductive it is, where we're just like even someone who's been through it can forget that. But I mean, I think anyone who doesn't believe that influencing is a real job, like let me just use an example, like the trips that influencers take when they're posting from the trip, like that's not vacation for them. I don't really know how else to describe it, that like they're on vacation, they're on the beach, they're like wearing different bikinis. But like when I would go away and share my trips, I was working, like my mom can attest to, like I was working all day. I was on my phone all day. I was posting everything. I even went on a solo trip and I was sharing so much that my followers were like, you can't even call this a solo trip because you're bringing us along with you. Like you're not even taking time for yourself. Like isn't the point of a solo trip to like be alone and to kind of reflect and be quiet? And I was just like posting all the time because like people loved, like people were like, oh my God, go to the Trevi Fountain next. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd like be like, take me with you to the like let me come. You know, I was like bringing them, you know, on the trip with me. So it's so much work, and it like, you know, work is work and we get to choose what we want to do for work, but it's a kind of misunderstood work.
I want to walk through that process of you're on that trip, you're looking through 200 photos of the same exact thing, determining which of those 200 to share, plus writing the caption, plus deciding which emoji, plus deciding which hashtag. I've been off Instagram for 15 years because I just can't fathom that process. I think everyone can relate to that performance or to that posturing. We all do it, but not to the scale in which we're talking hundreds of thousands of people. What's going through your head as you're thinking about which words to write, or which of those, now you narrowed it down to 30. Which of those 30? Like, what's going through? What are the voices? What are the fears? What are the anxieties? What are the desires? What's happening?
Yeah, so there's a mindset that influencers, I think, like at least what I did, and I found success with this mindset, and I think I found it by hanging out with other influencers, and you just kind of like learn how they deal with it. Because if you start thinking like, okay, X amount of people are going to be watching this story, then you can kind of get frozen with fear. And so you just have to like really not give a damn. Like you just have to be like, I don't care what anyone thinks. And you kind of have to be a little delusional, and you just have to like just be doing it for your followers. Like you have to put your followers on this pedestal where you're like, I will live, eat, die, sleep for them. Like I would do anything for them. And you have to kind of go into this mindset where you're just like, it's like a little crazy and it takes a lot of sacrifice, and it's hard to have a full life when you're in this mindset, which is why I never want to go back there. But it's like the key to success. It's kind of like you like, it's like with a lot of successful people, you kind of like eat, sleep, breathe, die, work. Like it's all you do. You wake up thinking about it. You go to bed thinking about it. But I got to a point where I don't know if it's just because I grew so fast. Like I grew really, really fast. It wasn't like a slow burn. It was kind of like I went viral and I just like rode the wave.
What's fast? Like
I was growing like 7,000 followers a month at one point. Which is for months on end. Like it took me a couple months to hit 100K. And then once I hit 100K, within like a couple months, I was at 200K. So like there was a period where I was growing really fast. I was like on the Explore page. It was like wellness was also popping off. Like it was like Goop, but I feel like I was like the more approachable wellness girl. and like it was like full blown girl boss era, and I was living in LA, and LA everyone was like tired of New York and like moving. A big article had come out in the New York Times saying like it's the golden age of LA, and like I was already there, and I was always getting messages from people being like, I want to move to LA. And I think that like I really like, I'm not even from LA, I'm from Connecticut, but I just was really good at like, I seemed like I was like LA, you know.
Mm-hmm. How do I want to put this? We connected over this idea of audience capture. This idea where for the longest time, we have always placed the power in the hands of the creator, or the one that's doing the making. And we even hear it in our language. Did the song move you? Did the speech change your thinking? The artist or the piece of content was the agent doing something to essentially the audience. What's less discussed and what you literally experienced is the inverse of that relationship, when audiences begin to dictate or to puppeteer or to control the creator. Was there ever a moment where it was so clear to you that, oh, wait a second, I have lost a bit of control over what I want to say, what my tastes are? Like, was there a specific moment, or was that over time?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say there was a moment where I was like, oh, this is out of control. And it was probably during the cancellation of November 2018, never forget. But I would say like at that point I was like, oh, I think my audience was in control before then, but that was the moment where I really realized that I think I was just like, oh, this is bigger than I can handle. Like it was the first time that I was like, oh, I don't think I'm cut out for this. I'm not cut out for this many eyeballs. Like what you asked before is like, I think I got to a place where like even before that whole experience happened, every time I posted, I was starting to feel a lot of anxiety because I was like, I mean, listen, there's influencers that have like 5 million, 6 million followers. But for me, the hundreds of thousands of followers and the DMs and the stories, it was just like, I was starting to get really overwhelmed and anxious and feeling like the performance anxiety of like the pressure of like that fast growth and wanting to every post to outdo the last one.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about that moment?
Like the
backlash moment?
The backlash, yeah. So it's in the book, but it was in 2018, I decided to raise the prices of my workshop. And this was one of my favorite parts of the book to write because my perspective on it has changed so much. But in the moment, it was one of the scariest things I went through. I thought my business, everything was crashing down. I called my mom and was like, you have to come out to LA, because I had never had this thought before, but I was like, I don't really want to like live, because I had put my whole life into this app and my page and my followers, and to have backlash over something that I was really excited about. But I was also a little nervous about raising the prices and whether or not people agree with the price raise or whatever. I think that the backlash was really unwarranted. But what I'm excited about for people to read and hopefully have conversations about is it kind of reflected a greater thing that was happening at the time, and that we see all the time now. Whenever I see someone online get backlash, like for instance, a influencer, she was like a body positive influencer, and then she started taking Ozempic or she got like surgery or something, and she got tons of backlash. And for me, it's never like whatever they did, because nobody's perfect. Like everybody who's on that mob train, like, you know, yelling for vengeance, like I would love to see your life and how you've done everything so perfectly, but to be on that like spotlight and to like expect somebody to be perfect, that's just like what I don't know if I'll ever fully like understand. And well, I can understand it because I've been on the backside of that, I was so overwhelmed by the negativity. And every time I tried to make it better by doing an apology stories, and then I did a video and I hired a PR firm, and it just made everything worse. And it was a crazy experience.
I think what's so interesting about it, and there's a line, literally, my followers didn't pay for my online content. And then finally, here's an opportunity to monetize the audience. And I think what's so interesting is that, you know, audiences often get conditioned to think that all this material is free, whether that be entertainment or voyeurism or whatever it may be. And finally, when it comes time to monetize or to make a living out of this brand growth, all of a sudden there's this kind of switch of, wait a second, you're gatekeeping what I've been expecting for free. We often think of parasocial relationships, right? This asymmetrical relationship between the creator and the audience, where the audience has this perceived intimacy or expectations to the creator. I think what's really interesting, like audience capture, is the inverse of that, where we think about what we can call the Parasocial relationship, which is what the Green brothers call. And I'll define that as the asymmetrical relationship, but now from the view of the creator, where now the creator has these expectations or desires or goals of, hey, buy this thing, or hey, sign up for X, Y, and Z. And whether that be backlash or crickets, again, there's this asymmetrical dynamic, which to me is fascinating because no one wants to talk about that side of it.
C-SPAN's Afterwords podcast continues in a moment. Now back to C-SPAN's Afterwords podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation, for me, I think a lot of followers felt like they had some ownership over me and owned me. I mean, and I let them, though. That's the thing. I think I went viral at 23 or 24, and I was still figuring out who I was, and I didn't have a strong sense of self yet. And I think I could only find that by getting offline. It's like why we see child movie stars are like, okay, yeah, I needed to get away from that to have a semi-normal life, because it's really hard to grow up with that pressure and spotlight. But I think that I might have been just emitting a vibe that was sure, criticize me. And if you do, I'll apologize, because it was relentless. I think a lot of people were waiting for me to trip up. And when I did, they were ready.
How do you make sense of that? Because to me, even, snark communities is still a perverse form of fandom, right? Mm-hmm. We only talk about things that we care about. We don't talk about things that we don't care about, whether that be hate or criticism, no matter how fucked up or cruel it may be. How do you make sense of those who go out of their way waiting for a slip up? Have you made sense of that?
Yeah, I think, again, it's like a dream. It's like when you're in it, I love Reddit, and I go on Reddit, and sometimes it will try to get me to follow a snark page. It will say you should, and I'm like, that's dark. It's really dark. And sometimes I don't look at snark pages about me, but I look at snark pages about other influencers just to see, and I can read what, because I'm interested in the world of influencing, and I can see what people are saying, and I'm like, I understand the snarker. I understand the snarker, and I understand the influencer, because again, when I stopped influencing, I started to look at these influencers' life, and I was like, that's awesome. And I was starting to get filled with a little bit of jealousy. And I'm not saying that all snark is rooted in jealousy, but I do agree that, Ali Kriegsman said, that snark, if you're snarking, you're unhappy with something in your life. And I know it sounds like a little woo-woo, but I don't believe that anyone who's fully fulfilled is spending time on snark pages. I think it's kind of like tabloids, or what you do when you're doing reality TV show. It's kind of like trash for your brain, and it feels really good. It's like a chocolate chip cookie. It feels so good. And I don't know, I think people who are commenting and really active on those pages, I wonder how they're doing. I can't imagine a fulfilled, happy, successful, busy person is on those pages.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know. That's the second part of the book, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the writing process itself. How did it feel, literally putting all of this onto a page? I mean, it's a lot. It's very personal. It's very intimate. Walk us through the, not just intimacy of the material, but the emotions of going through that roller coaster of, wow, I'm putting this onto a page. I'm going to throw this into the world, especially coming from a prior, experience or role of perfecting and meticulously crafting everything. And now here's everything. The cringe, the embarrassment, the catharsis.
Yeah.
What's it been like?
Well, I think it was very cathartic to write something that was totally uncurated. And I wrote this book pretending that nobody was going to read it. And that's the only way.
It reads that way.
Well, yes.
In the best way.
Okay, good. But I had to kind of pretend that nobody was going to read it. And it's helpful when you sell a book. You get like a pub date and it's 2 years out. So it's hard to even imagine like 2 years out from today would be 2027. It's like, I don't even know what I'm going to be doing in 2027. So I just kind of was like, it was 2023 and I was like, one person might read this. I kind of just kept telling myself, like, if one person reads it, that's great. But I just kind of pretended that nobody was going to read it. And I made sure that like Keith McNally said, he just wrote a book. And he said, if you're not cringing at every sentence that you wrote, then you're probably not telling the truth. And I can tell you that I cringe at a lot of it. And I actually haven't really read this in a couple months because the process of writing and editing is very arduous, but I'm like, I don't know, you guys take it.
Was there anything that didn't make its way in? Like anything on the cutting room floor?
Yeah.
That you can share?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't have anything off the top of my head though. Well, there was one trip that the Leave, Pray, Love, if there's any like OG followers here, but like Leave, Pray, Love, when I like went to Europe by myself, and it was the trip that I was referring to earlier where I was posting like 20, 30 stories a day. And I was like dancing on my terrace in Puglia. And again, I sometimes look at those photos, I'm like, that looks so cool. Like I'm wearing like linen and it's just like, it looks like this perfect trip. And I can kind of like look at this. I think images are so powerful. And Instagram is a platform of images. And we can get taken into these images and be like, if I am there wearing that dress, then I will be like her. And that's, I think, what good influencers do is they say, like, they bring you into their lives and they're wearing their outfits and using their skincare, and it helps if they're good looking. And then they're like, and if you use my code, then you can be like me too. I think that's the essence of it, because like, we're just like, it's just kind of like, I'm very inspired by that person. I'm still to this day inspired by some of the people that I see and follow on social media. But I have to remember, to go outside.
What's the craziest thing you've done in the pursuit of wellness? Like, has there been like an act or a post that you're like, in hindsight, wow, that was something?
Yeah, I used to drink this really, really gross tea called Triphala. It's Triphala, and it's a mix of 3 different herbs, and I believe it's from Chinese herbal medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. And it looks like it's like black, and you add a little bit of hot water, and it's like a sludge, and it's to help with your digestion, which was like my kind of like it was like that was the cornerstone of a lot of my content, because like it was kind of the era of gut health. But I think also when you're really obsessed with your health and you're stressed about it and you're paying a lot of attention to your body, it can actually have the adverse effects where you start to experience indigestion because it's so tied to stress. But I would drink this like sludge every night, and I would just be like, and I had been like already like off sugar. I was already like in this, like used to eating kind of foods that were not enjoyable. But drinking that every night, hoping that, it would like pass through me. And so I'd be cleansed in the morning. That was really hard.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. On top of the other 100,000 things
there's
I
a lot.
did.
Yeah, there's a lot. I couldn't imagine. There was, and it's also incredibly expensive. That's the other element that I just can't also imagine.
But I want to be clear that like all the things I got were free. I was using, there's a part of the book where I'm using a face oil, and I talk about it, and I put the link up, and then a couple people are like, hey, Lee, that oil is like $155. Like, I'm working really hard at my job, but like, is it worth it? Like, and I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm promoting 100. I hadn't even I was so out of touch that I was like, and of course, like, I don't even know if I got kickbacks on that one, but because it was gifted to me, that's like how a lot of the world works now in like editorial and fashion. If you see an article that's like 5 best bags, like either they're getting an affiliate link or they're getting kickbacks, or those bags were like sent to the editors. And of course they're going to feature a bag that was sent for free because it's, it's brand, it's relationship building and so on and so forth. Who doesn't love a free bag?
Truth. You shine a lot of light on like those types of stories of where I, for one, am fascinated with the behind the scenes of what it's like to be on the other end of those types of deals. What are some elements that just for the sake of the audience, would like actually shock people in regards to, I can't believe that's a thing in regards to whether that be the contracts or the money or the perhaps lack of contracts or the lack of, metrics or performance? Like, what are some elements that like still today people do not realize when it comes to this type of work?
Yeah, well, it really depends on the brand you're working with. Some brands, like, they give you total creative freedom, and they say, like, we've got this, this box that we want you to promote. We love your content, like, do whatever. And then other brands are like, this isn't in the book, but for instance, I worked with a toothpaste brand. I can't say which, just in case, but I worked with a toothpaste brand, and their color was blue. And so you were not allowed to have any red or green in the photo because it could evoke the feeling of their competitor. And so I took the picture in my bathroom and I sent it to them, and there was like not even blue, but there was like blue, like red, or anyway, there was a competitor like toning, and they had me reshoot it. So there's that, just like really extreme over.
Were they nice about it? Or was it like a
well,
very
it was annoying
stern...
to have to reshoot, because a shoot would take a day, because like you have to kind of like plan, like my shoot days were always Tuesdays or Wednesdays, and you might have to go get product. You'd have to, like, I would also always, I lived in LA and I had a lot of plants, but in all of my photos, I would move all my plants to the background of my photo to make it look like I had all plants everywhere. And so I was always moving my plants, it was all staged. My apartment, yes, it had a lot of plants, but they were usually like spread out. But I would always put them behind like all my, like me, so that so people were probably like, oh my God, she lives in like this like plant-filled apartment. Everyone was always like, plant-filled. Everything was plant-filled, and it was way too many plants. And but it was annoying to have to like move them around. So yeah.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
I'm mindful of time. I got to like half of my questions.
Okay.
What do you wish people take away from this book or from your own experiences or lessons? What's the parting, like, please learn from me, blank?
Well, I get a lot of questions like, what would you tell the younger generation? And when I went through this experience, I've always looked to people, like memoirs especially, to help me through situations. And when I went through this situation, I was like, there's no book out there that talks about this. And if I went through it, someone else will too. So I want, of course, influencers to find this book. And it's just funny because none of them are online seeing my videos, because a lot of them have disappeared. So I need to find them. And I want them to read this book because, a lot of them have read it and have said like, oh my God, I relate. So influencers can relate, but also I think that anyone who's been online can relate, because even if you have like a private account and you're just posting like baby pictures and big moments, the pull's there. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna share the highlights, and I'm gonna share the photo of the good side of my face. And, I'm not gonna, like stories are cringe now, or like whatever, and I like, even if you're not an influencer, the urge to curate and, project a perfect image is still there. So I want people to feel less alone. And kind of back to your first question, it's like an influencer writing and promoting a book about not influencing. It's like, I'm just here to start the conversation.
I love it. It's a mirror. It's a really effective mirror. With that, I think we're going to open up to questions.
If anybody has a question, just raise your hand and we will bring you a microphone. I see some back here. Ooh.
Hey, so there's something you said early on that I've been thinking a lot about, which is that fundamentally, like everyone, everything, all communication is social media these days. Mm-hmm. I'm like someone who's completely offline. Is it possible? Am I missing out? How much is that really, do you think, the case that everything really is social media? Like that is the communication of everything these days?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that if you can do your job and live your life and not be on social media, like that is great. And I like that. And there might have been a time in my life where I said, I envy that, and I might get back to that place. But luckily right now I'm in a good place with it. But the reason I say that is because like, even if you're off social media, like if you walk around New York and you're gonna like, though there are people who are wearing things or like the Stanley Cup or the Labubu, and like that is all happening on social media, and then you can just like walk outside and see it, and those stores are watching the reels tick up of Labubus, and then they're buying Labubus and putting them on the end caps. So it's just like, I mean, at least with consumerism, it's like you can't really escape social media if you're just in New York, because I'm sure you walk outside and you see influencers doing their outfits of the day. But I would say in general, like it's a great life to be off social media. So no.
I have one here in the front.
I'm just wondering, and I'm sure other people are curious as well, are you still in touch with any of the other OG wellness influencers?
No. No, not really. I'm not, and I talk about the relationships in those books a little. I change the names and everything to protect the innocent, but I've just found that, well, first of all, a lot of them live in LA, but I think that some of them are maybe like afraid that I was going to write about them, but mostly just because I think like my exit, like just kind of, those were just like the thing that bonded us. And I talk about this in the book, but also I just wrote an essay about this on my Substack. But like a lot of times the friendship is just based on social media, and it's to like help each other. And it doesn't always kind of last, and that's okay.
We have another one in the front.
Yeah, I have a question about authenticity, and I've noticed like trending on social now more like they're actually not clearing the back of their bedroom. They're showing like more mess, just in general. Do you feel like this is a healthy medium?
No, because even when authenticity is part of the content strategy, then you're locked into authenticity, and it's still a performance. Like there are like influencers who share like their acne journey and like real, like, or body positivity, or I mean, just what we've seen lately with the body positivity. Even if that's like you're authentically in that, then you need to be that. And if you're not always body positive, then like you have disowned your community. So I think if your brand is authenticity, I believe that nothing can truly be authentic online. I just inherently it can't, because it's edited and filtered by the poster. And someone once said, like, when you're online and you're posting, you're like the stage manager and everyone's in the audience. And so when you're in charge of the stage and the content, it's self-filtered. So I might share some things and leave some out and make you think a certain way, even though it's not 100% true. Like,
We have another question on that side over there.
Hi, congratulations, first of all. I remember even when you did your clay mask with your armpits and all the things. But okay, I kind of have two questions, and I know this might be kind of hard to think about, but like knowing what you know now and looking back, would you still do it? Or do you think you would have done something entirely different? Or like, do you feel a level of detachment from it where, because obviously that's your life, it's not like it was an experience. I mean, it is an experience, that's your life, but looking back and obviously writing about it, does it put you there so you can, like, do you spiral at all, or are you able to fully detach from it? And would you go back and redo it knowing where you are right now in this moment?
well, I think that I'm grateful for my experience because, well, first of all, it's my experience, so you can't change the past. But I'm grateful that I lived it, and I think that I was meant to. I just kind of believe that everything happens for a reason. So I think that like I had that experience, and right after it, I regretted it. And I remember saying to my family, like, oh, I wish this never happened, especially with the cancellation. Like, I should have never even posted. And my family was like, but you achieved so much. And they were trying to show the positives of it. But there was a really long time where I had a lot of shame. I cut my hair off. I really just hated what I had been posting about. I felt very icky about it. I made an apology video about being a wellness influencer. I just kind of like hated myself and hated the industry, and I had a lot of like hate in my heart. And I've gotten to a place now where I just am so happy and proud of the trajectory. And I think that, well, first of all, I was able to write this book, and that's kind of the funny thing too, is like, you know, I was able to write this book because of followers like you, and you guys stuck around, and you were there when I was doing the oil pulling and the armpit masks and the armpit hair. And I wouldn't have had this career without that transaction. But now I just kind of have like pride and joy and happiness, and also kind of like it's changing so rapidly. And now I can kind of speak from, I've been doing it for so long, and I was around before TikTok and Substack. So it's kind of, I feel like I can be here for creators who haven't gone through this yet and haven't gone viral yet and are about to go on this trajectory, and then they can pick up this book, hopefully.
C-SPAN's Afterwords podcast continues in a moment. Now back to C-SPAN's Afterwords podcast.
I'm going to pass this across to you.
Thank you. I hope this question makes sense. I'll do my best. So I can imagine that when you were fully immersed in this world, beyond like taking over your time, your work, your eating, it was also a big part of your identity as a person. And our jobs aren't who we are as people, and you've had different jobs since then, and you've now become a writer. But I'm curious to hear how you have kind of rebuilt your sense of self, like how you kind of identify as a person.
Yeah, that's
after
such a good
influencing.
question. I think that I had to go offline, and the book ends with me, you know, going offline. And you don't really see what happens next. But I took that 6-month hiatus, and then I went back because, and I went back with, you know, managers saying, well, maybe we can find a sponsorship for you to come back and be like #healthy. I mean, it was so, I mean, now I'm like, that is crazy. Like everything was money and brand partnership. I was like, I don't want to come back to social media talking about like the traumatic thing I went through with like a hashtag like brand partnership and like posting obligations. But then I went back for a little bit during the pandemic, and then I decided that I think just something inside me was like, I'm not fully healed. And the pandemic was also a dark time. And I think my audience, everybody was like agitated, and I just felt like it was very negative. And I had a therapist who said, Lee, I think you're too healthy for social media. And I don't agree with that necessarily, but I think what she was saying was, I was like going this way, and a lot of my followers were still down here, and they were kind of trying to like not bring me down, but like they just didn't like the change that I had made. And so then I really logged off, and that's when I like moved back to New York and got a job at a regular 9-to-5. And I just kind of like, I didn't even like post that I was coming back to New York. I like fully assimilated back into, as they say, private life. And that was like what I needed to do. That's how I found my sense of self. I am like still to this day, most of my friends, all of my friends are private citizens. Like I live a pretty normal life, and I like it that way. That's what keeps me grounded, the people. And yeah, I think that like being in that like LA influencer world was like kind of just bringing me, well, like nobody was tethered. We were all like floating around in a world where we were like performing for our audiences, and it was like one long play.
We have time for just one more question. It's going to be straight down the row here.
Congratulations on your book. I saw something online recently that was about like the gap between like us and success is cringe. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned like writing this book felt like you're like, this is just so cringe. But it's like, my question is, what role does feeling cringe play in participating in online content creation? Like, when is it helpful and when is it not helpful, and what what does cringe feel like? Like, is cringe good? I don't know, just cringe. I'm curious.
Yeah, like, do you want my perspective on it?
Yes.
Okay, because I mean, I feel like I still sometimes see stuff being like, embrace the cringe. And like, listen, I sometimes still feel so cringe posting. That's just, I think, like, it's just like a very natural human emotion. But one thing that really helps me is being like again, like while talking about this book, I've had moments where I'm like, I don't want to, like I'm overthinking that. And like zooming out and taking it less seriously. Really, none of it's serious at all. And like zooming out, it's not that serious. It's okay to be cringe. Like I said, like I cringed reading a lot of my own book, and it's really kind of like you can view the creation of social media as like, I'm going to create the story, create the post, create the reel, let it go, and let the public decide how they feel about it. So that's kind of how I like to think of it. It's just like, I'm going to create it, put it up, and people can like it or not. And I won't die. Regardless.
Let's give these folks a round of applause. Thank you all for coming. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Discussions like this can be heard every weekend on C-SPAN 2's Book TV. Go to our website, cspan.org/booktv, to get a complete schedule. Next week on this podcast, Tim Weiner talks about the history and evolution of the CIA in his book, The Mission, the CIA in the 21st Century.